Hello, and welcome back again to Empower Your Soul. Thank you for being here. Happy day. Happy day. I thought I would take this episode to answer a few questions that I received from folks in my Instagram stories and Instagram messages. And I think they're really good questions. And I love, love, love the questions. I might not always have the answers, and I will let you know when I don't. And that might happen today. I'm not quite sure. But I love it when you ask questions because it really just helps clarify, reset, give new ideas to all of the spiritual mumbo jumbo that is rinsed and repeated all over social media because most people don't have an original thought for themselves. I'm sorry, they don't, which is why I'm griping about social media and I'm rolling my eyes and I want to drop it because I can't stand the people out there right now that are just sharing the same old shit every day. Every day. We have unlimited access to unlimited information in the spirit world. The only thing that is holding us back is our tiny, puny brains and our ability to comprehend the information that's come in. But yet, all of the spiritual gurus just tend to rinse and repeat everything they hear from everybody else. Can you tell I'm a little bitter, a little angry about that? I'm working through it. Usually when I'm bitter or when I'm angry about something, that's my pivot to do something about it, which is why apparently I'm recording this podcast episode. But yes, so thank you. Always ask me questions. I will let you know if I don't have the answers, but always ask me questions because I would love to give you the best answer that I possibly can by channeling my guides and based on what I've experienced either in my readings or obviously through the things that I've learned as well. And by the way, I don't just take one answer. I have to take it from multiple perspectives because that's me. I don't take anything. I take everything I learn with a grain of salt until I can prove it otherwise. So the question Sarah over here on Instagram was saying that she was listening to a podcast that Matt Frazier was in, and he was saying you can miss the person you're supposed to be with if you don't leave the house. So she's asking, can you truly bypass people you're supposed to meet or be with if you don't heal, if you don't go out and find them, etc.? I know on a soul level, we're supposed to meet people and interact with certain people for ascension. So this is a really good question, Sarah. And I know I just recorded right before this, the soul contracts episode, which you would have heard by now if you're listening to these in order. So I'm not going to go against what I said there, but I'm going to give a little bit of nuance there because it's a really good question. And I don't think that you can miss the people that you're supposed to be with. So this is like a yes and no question. And the reason why it's a complicated question, and when I'm asking spirit to help answer this for me, it feels like taffy. It feels like I'm just pulling apart and this can go in a bunch of different directions. But I think the easiest way I'm going to answer it for you, Sarah, is when spirit shows me soul contracts or life paths, to me, see, now we're adding complexity to the soul contract thing right here. To me, it looks like levels, I'm going to say in Super Mario Brothers, right? You have the beginner level, and you have the bad guy. I'm just going to say, let's just say there's 5 different levels to your life. Okay. We're going to take the video game. We're going to put it into our life. So you have the option to go to 5 different levels. And I know this is true because in so many different readings I have had personally, as well as other people that I've given readings to, there are lives that we can truly, I'm going to say ascend. And I hate using that word because again, I think it's one of those regurgitated words, but we can truly surpass what our lessons we targeted to learn were in our lifetime. So I think that at a baseline level on the basic level 1, you will go through and you will meet the people you're supposed to meet. You'll hit those life milestones, etc. I think that if you choose to constantly get better, right? Or to learn the lessons faster, you don't delay, your free will doesn't take over, you stay on your path, then I think that you can essentially complete your soul lessons very early in life. And then it brings you to level 2, right? And I think on level 2, you're hey, this is contingency plan 2. If I surpass my lessons, these are my bonus level lessons that I want to learn. And here's this thing, right? Here's what level 2 looks like. And if you complete level 2, then you can go to level 3, right? I think there are, I'm going to say negative levels too. It's probably not the right word for it, but I think if you get to one of your soul contract milestones and you opt out and you're no thanks, decided I don't want to do that anymore, then I think that you can again go to a different level and live that life. So I want to say that each level has its own milestones, people you're supposed to meet, etc. So I think whatever level you end up on, Sarah, is the right level for you. I don't think there's any right. I don't think there's any wrong. I don't like you. To me, there's no judgment in what level or what you choose. I think it's more like contingency planning for different lives that you could potentially live within one life. So no, I don't think that based on the level you're at, you're going to miss people. But if you are aiming for level 3 and you only end up on level 2, then yeah, maybe you might miss somebody you were supposed to meet on level 3. Does that make sense? But I don't think, but that's okay. But that's okay. Like, there's no judgment in not going to different levels or making different decisions on your life contract, because what you made is your free will choice on these milestone soul contracts moment is your free choice. And that is your soul choosing to learn or not learn a lesson. And you will go through a life based on that decision. Does that make sense? So I think that you meet who you're supposed to meet depending on the choices that you make. So I guess yes, Matt Fraser's right, because you're not going to meet the level 3 people if you choose to stay on level 2, but that's okay. You weren't supposed to meet the level 3 people because you made the choice not to choose that level. Is that complicated enough? So it's not, so here's how I really want to like follow up and answer that question for you, Sarah. So I don't want you to just be like, oh, the universe fucked me over. I decided not to go out on that Sunday morning and I never met the love of my life. Oh, it's like life is not these one moments, right? For the most part, they tend to be decisions that you make over time. So I'm going to challenge you. Where am I going with this? I'm going to challenge you to say, the whole name of the game in terms of our soul contracts, our life, is empowerment. And that's why I'm so, and it's such a freaking overused word right now, but I think it's the right word for this podcast, because I want you to feel empowered in your decisions. And if you don't like the path that you're on, it doesn't mean that you can't get to level 2 or level 3 later in life. You might have missed out on the opportunity to meet or know certain people, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to meet fabulous people that are, part of your contingency plan as a soul. So it doesn't matter. Let me just say it this way. It doesn't matter. At any moment in your life, you can choose to change and choose to do things differently. And every time you make a choice, it's the right choice for that moment. Like, so know that you can always make lemonade out of lemons, no matter what point you are in your life. But the thing is, if you don't actively choose, if you don't actively make an effort, if you don't get out of your house, if you don't see people, if you don't follow your intuition and your gut and like going to all these different places and doing all these different experiences, that is the choice that you make. You opted to be an isolated hermit, and that's the isolated hermit path that you chose. And that means that you aren't going to choose people, because on your isolated hermit path, let's call that level H for fun, for hermit, level H, then that is your H path, right? That means that you are going to be the internet warrior that goes on those message boards and meets people all over the world, but you're never going to know their real name. They're only going to know your Reddit username, right? Like, this is what I mean. So at any point you can opt out of path H and start going to clubs. When I say clubs, I mean like knitting clubs, because I'm 40. Not actual clubs, but you can at any point you can choose to start on a different path, and that's okay. And what's going to happen to you on that path is perfect too. So be empowered to do what feels right for you, and know that the hermit path might feel right now. And then maybe next year a different path feels good for you. And either way, Spirit is going to applaud whatever decision you make when you purposely choose to progress your soul, and you choose things that are uncomfortable, and you choose things that are difficult. So know that everything that happens is not an accident. It's all supposed to happen. So I don't know if I fully answered that question, Sarah, but that is how Spirit is going to help me answer that one. But it was a really, really good question. Okay. So next up is, Manifest Magic. I'm ing Manifest Magic 513 because I tried to record your answer like 5 times and I don't know if I have an answer for you, but I'm gonna blubber my way through this one for you. So over on Instagram, Manifest Magic asked, how do you make sure the legacy you leave is so much greater than the human you? And when I blubbered this answer before, I have to tell you that I talked a lot about the ego and how legacy tends to be very ego driven and wanting people to know and remember you and wanting to but I don't think everything comes from ego with legacy, because I think that we genuinely as souls want to help people and leave people behind. And that's a lot of the soul contract stuff that I kind of talked about too, is trying to help people. So here's how I want to answer this Manifest Magic. I think that when you live authentically and you do in your heart what you think is right, whether that is a certain job, whether that's treating people with respect, whether that's like helping out at homeless shelters or soup kitchens, right? Whether that is doing this metaphysical work and you truly are opting to do things that help other people in some way, form, or another, that is legacy. And I want to tell you that whenever I talk to people who are in the metaphysical space, who are healers, a lot of times what spirit will come in and say is essentially this ripple effect of helping people, and how even though you're just having this one-on-one meeting or session with one client, what happens is that I'm going to say like fix their energy, help their vibration raise a little bit. But then because their vibration is raised and because they're healed, they end up helping another person who helps another person who helps another person. So I don't want to get stuck in the egocentric word of legacy, because whenever you're choosing authentically to love people, to help people, to give people positive energy, positive wishes, positive thoughts, that is leaving this invisible legacy, this ripple effect that cascades to so many other people in a way that you'll never see. And when spirit shows this to me, a really good example, this might be not 100% accurate, but this is the best I can remember, because I channel a lot of my sessions, and then you get channeling or mediumship amnesia. You don't really remember them all, but like there's ones that spirit will stick out. So I'm hoping they can help supplement what I can remember from this. But I believe this person worked with children in hospitals, like with cancer. Like I can't remember the exact specifics, but I know that they helped children who came from not great circumstances, or they were not in good condition one way or the other. But what ended up happening is, because this person helped these children, I could see the families of these children come forward. Like when I say families, I mean departed people that they loved and their ancestors. Like we're talking about like generations of people for each child that this person helped, coming forward to help this soul in this moment continue their mission. So that is, to me, that's legacy. That's legacy, is can you help people here so much that they can help other people who can help other people who can help other people. So I don't want, like, maybe that's me. I don't want my legacy to be on paper. I want my legacy to be in the eyes and ears and hearts of my clients, so that they can do what they came here to do, right? How can I clear their path so that they can make their best path too, and they can clear the paths of others, and then so on and so forth. So that's what I think of when I think of legacy, Manifest Magic. So it might be a little untraditional in your sense of the word, but again, as long as you're bringing it back to authenticity, doing your best, doing your highest good, and helping others in the way that you feel most aligned to help them, that is your legacy that will be so much bigger than the human you. So I guess that did answer the question. And by the way, if you're one of those people, and you know who you are, that has the money to help other people, and you want the name on the sign too. Like, why not, right? Like it doesn't hurt anybody. If that helps you and continues to drive you to help other people by seeing your name on a sign, like, go ahead, do it. Like, if that is authentically aligned to you to have that name recognition, go for it. there is no judgment from the spirit world. You don't have to do this quietly or thanklessly in order to make the most legacy impact. That's not true at all. Do it whatever way that works for you, as long as, again, it's most authentically aligned to you and how you feel good helping people. That's it. That's all you got to do. I hope that answers your question, Manifest Magic. It was a good one. Yeah. It's the 5th time recording that one's a charm. 5th time. Okay, so the next one is, I think this is the last question I have. I'm going to butcher this. Kajolok, KJO Lock 7, asked me, why do I'm going to call it the spiritual, I'm going to paraphrase this. Why did the spirituality doors open essentially for some people after a death? And I think the answer here is, so let me, just to rephrase that question a little bit, Spirit's having me rephrase it in my head, is like, why do people tend to have major spiritual awakenings after the death of somebody that they loved or they were close to? And the reason is because now you're more open to wanting something bigger than yourself. There is now hope that this person is not gone, whether that is just you hoping that they're not gone and you start looking for something else, or maybe they do pass and you start seeing signs from them that you're just, that are blowing your mind, right? And I think it goes both ways. I think you can hope for it. They can show you the signs. Either way, there's just this spiritual connection that you have with certain people that when they move into the spiritual world, you start realizing the bonds don't stop. They don't stop. In our human ego brain, it's going to feel like they stop because you can't feel them in the physical sense of the word. But you know how many clients I've had that have been like, I've been like, when they're in the room, and they're like, yeah. And these are people who are not mediums. They are not psychics, right? They're probably intuitives at some level, but they know when their departed loved one is standing behind them in the room, because again, that soul bond can't be broken just because they don't have a physical body anymore. So I think that for most people, that realization is like cracked open when their loved ones move into the spirit world and they realize, wait, this is not the end. And so I think you start opening up to the possibility that there's something more. But here's what's so interesting to me, and this is how Spirit has explained it to me a couple times. It's like, as soon as you acknowledge that this stuff is real, that the souls are real, that life transcends physical life here on earth, right? Their spiritual world exists. Then it's like you open up to the reality of the spirit world, and it's like this knowing just comes in. It's like your soul remembers. It's like the Matrix, right? Like your soul just remembers that this whole spirit world exists, and what the heck am I doing here? And it's like all of a sudden you crack open, and all this information that your soul knows and has learned over many, many lifetimes about the spirit world existing comes flooding in. And they not only that, I gotta call out my asshole guides for a second here, because they like to show it to me this way too. When you start believing in the spirit world, like, they put the energy on overdrive to make sure you know it's real. And this happens in my beginner's mediumship classes too, because Spirit essentially supplements the energy to maximize or amplify the messages that you receive, so that you are more likely to receive them easier and trust them better. And this is why I think a lot of people in the beginning of their spiritual journey have very physical things that happen to them. Like they might see people, they might hear things, like, it's truly working with the 5 senses here in the physical world. They might see people with their eyes, they might hear things with their ears. Because essentially the spirit world is coming in and being like, we're proving to you that it's real. We're using your physical senses so that you're not making this up. And then as you start to move into your journey, they use, I'm going to say, those external senses for the most part, for most people, less and less and less, until it's all kind of internal, because you don't need it. You don't need the external proof anymore. You have to trust, you have to believe, you have to, like, they don't need to go through all that energy and effort anymore, because you already know that they're real. So I think that they do it for a couple of reasons. And by the way, I also think, to answer your question from the flip side, I think that when you pass, like, this was one of my favorite videos I posted. I didn't get many likes on it, but that's okay. It was a long one. But like, if I died tomorrow, wouldn't I do everything I could to come back and prove to my husband and my kids that I'm still here? Wouldn't I do everything I could? Right? Like if I died, I am going to come into my kids' dreams. I am going to like move shit on the shelf, right? I am going to like cause electronics to go on and off. I'm going to make the radon alarm in my house because apparently that's very sensitive to spirit because it goes off all the fucking time. I don't have radon. That will go on and off all day, right? Like why I would want them to know that I'm still here. I'm not gone. I'm right here because that provides such a level of healing for people to know that your loved ones are still around. So wouldn't you do that too, right? Wouldn't you try to crack open? So not only are us that remain in the physical world trying to make contact with our departed loved ones, but our departed loved ones are trying to make contact with us too, right? It goes both ways. So I think that's why that cracks open spirituality for a lot of people. And if they continue with it and they believe it and they follow it, then you're going to see. I'm hesitating for a second here because it's like a bell curve in my head. Like you don't know, and then all of a sudden like everything opens up and you might have a dark night of the soul and everything happens and you're like, what the fuck? This is all real. And then like it all tends to come crashing down at some point and you kind of go back to normalcy, quote normalcy at some point. So that's why there's this like wave, I'm going to say this bell curve of like spiritual stuff after you have your awakening, why it feels so big and then it feels so small, because it doesn't need to be big all the time. It just needs to be big at the beginning so you believe it. So I hope that answers your question. KJO Lock 7, Kajalock 7. And I want to say, based on what I've seen and who I've talked to, and I probably covered this in one of my earlier podcast episodes, but a lot of people that I see starting the spiritual journey are definitely because of deaths of loved ones, for sure, or people that are close to them. A lot of people, some people are just curious, and then there's quite a few people who have always been open to spirit, and like I kind of want to know what that's like. Like apparently it was me, but I didn't experience it the way some people experienced it, which is totally rad to me. I got to talk about my kids on one of these podcast episodes. But for whatever reason, whether it's a death, whether it's something else, you tend to have a very similar experience if there's a moment of time that you start believing the spirituality stuff. And I'm going to say that's like probably, I'm going to say a more traditional path for people, which is interesting because I think most people get very... When I started this journey, there seemed to be two very different houses. And we could go down the rabbit hole here. Two very different houses. People who were born with this ability or saw spirit as a child. And then there's that other camp that had to have something happen to be spiritually awakened. And I don't know why there's these two distinct paths, but a lot of times there was a lot of headbutting and jealousy between these two camps, which cracks me freaking up as a spiritual person. It cracks me up because I'm just like, I don't think I'd want to know that spirit was around my whole life. But I knew it, right? And I don't know why there's such a headbutting between these two camps. It cracks me up. And there's a lot of jealousy. The people who... Can I go there? You don't mind, do you? The people who are like me that find out later in life that spirit's real, there's always this insane jealousy for people who saw spirits as child. Like for the most part, most people are very jealous of those people. And it's really funny because me having two kids that can do the spiritual work, like they fucking hate it. They're just like, I don't want these people in my life. My daughter is like hearing things externally right now. She's like, Mom, people call my name all day long. And I'm like, oh, sweetie, that's okay. Here's how you deal with that, right? So like, could you imagine being a child and seeing things, seeing shadow people? And some of you are like nodding. I know you're nodding because this was you, seeing shadow people as a child and nobody believes you, or hearing people call your name all day long and no one believes you. Could you imagine? Like that would, no wonder there were so many like loony bins back in the day, because like, how crazy is that? How crazy is that? And spirit, as I talk about this, spirit saying it was less prevalent, back in the day. I'm going to say it that way. I'm feeling like the prevalency is more and more now. It feels like there's a lot more kids nowadays that are open up to that. But like, that must be a very tough and lonely life and very delusional as well. So I'm going to say the path to opening up later in life is probably, I'm going to say a little bit easier, because then you can make conscious sense of a lot of this stuff and you can make rational decisions. But if you're a child that is afraid and you don't have a parent that thinks it's real, or thinks it's your imagination, like that's got to be really tough. That's got to be really tough. So, I don't know why I went down that rabbit hole there, but I did, and I enjoyed that. I hope you did too. So, so kudos at least for all of you being here and being open to spirit. I love each and every one of you. If you have, I think that is my list of questions. If you have any other questions you want to send my way, I'd love to answer them for you. Other than that, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day, and it's been great chatting with you. All right. Have a good one.